Welcome back, everyone. I'm John Furrier, your host of theCUBE, here at our NYSE studio. We're actually in our studio here on the East Coast. Of course, we have our Palo Alto studio here in New York Stock Exchange, connecting Wall Street and Silicon Valley tech and money. The market is technology, everything going on in business. The market, it's technology is the market. This is our crypto Trailblazers series. We feature the leaders, and one of those leaders went public this morning. Bitco now trading, stocks up 20+%. Nice little bump, it shows it's not going too frothy, which means a nice trajectory. So congratulations to Bitco. Robert Leshner's here, he's the CEO of Superstate, another company that's on the rise with some big finance news. Robert, great to see you again. It's been a couple months since you were on theCUBE. Thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me back on the show.
You know, the NYSE Wired program, a CUBE original that we put together, really hits the intersection between technology and capital markets. What you guys are doing really hits that mark perfectly, because as we've been discussing and chronicalizing and documenting and sharing and educating, crypto is going mainstream, but not cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and just Ethereum and Solana and others. It's the financial stack behind it. It's the ecosystem. It's essentially the infrastructure. Bitco's an infrastructure company for digital assets, physical and digital conversion. It sounds like NVIDIA's pitch. AI is physically connecting into there. So a lot of similarities between these massive growth markets. The financial infrastructure is being replumbed. Bitco is just in one sign that a platform, nail custody, enables financial services. You start to see the rising tide. Yeah, we might be in between tides, but still it's coming in strong.
Yeah, I mean, Bitco is an infrastructure company that supports, you know, the blockchainification of markets, right? What we're seeing at Superstate is every asset is making its way over to blockchains, because blockchains are the best place for assets to trade, settle, and move. We're seeing demand from every corner of Wall Street. You know, there was announcements by New York Stock Exchange just a few days ago that they're deeply passionate about tokenization. We've seen announcements from everybody else, all the other exchanges and custodians, and the story is extremely clear. Eventually, all assets are going to trade and settle on blockchains instead of the way that they operate today.
Let's rewind that, 'cause I think I want to say it again, because this is super important. This is the number one takeaway right now. When you squint through the noise, look at the signal, it's the signaling like the NYSE is inevitable.
It is.
That all assets will be digitized, and they'll be digitized in a way that's not a centralized thing, but decentralized with blockchain. We all see Venmos out there. We all have Apple Pay on our iPhones. Or if you're Android, you have a similar service. So we're already digital.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's not distributed.
Right, and you know, when you talk about a centralized, you know, set of records versus a blockchain where there's a single, transparent, you know, shared set of records, it's just more efficient, right? So anytime a stock like Bitco is trading on the New York Stock Exchange today, at the end of the day, you have multiple different perspectives. You have the New York Stock Exchange blotter, you have each broker's blotter, and most of the time they agree, but you have multiple different perspectives of what happened. And all of that gets, you know, settled and netted, you know, at DTC when all is said and done. But there's multiple different perspectives. When everything's on a blockchain, there's a single ledger and a single source of truth that everybody can share. And it just leads to a more efficient, lower cost, faster set of transactions.
Yeah. You know, our CUBE original program, the CUBE original, covers tech. We cover, you know, funding announcements. You know, tech company just gets a Series B. You guys have news. You've just closed a $82.5 million Series B.
That's
D,
right,
not
today.
Not C or D or E or Z as Databricks has done, or K, whatever number, it's way down the alphabet. Now you're seeing these kinds of announcements in the capital markets. So what's interesting about the NYSE Wired program is that it looks at the intersection of technology and capital markets, where technology is the market. Take us through the Series B. What was the traction? What was the driver behind this financing for you guys? It's a significant amount of capital. I mean, we were talking before camera, it's like almost a half of an IPO raise. So it's a significant chunk of change. You got dry powder. Take us through the announcement.
Yeah, so we announced $82.5 million of new funding for Superstate. Superstate, you know, we're a technology company that tokenizes securities. We bring securities onto blockchains to move faster. Up to this point, we've really focused on a couple different securities. We have 2 private funds that we've brought on-chain that have about $1.3 billion of AUM, a T-bill fund and a high-yield fund, tokenized, operating on blockchains. You know, a lot of crypto hedge funds are using these tokens and settling them and moving them around. Really clear success story there. A few months ago, we really started tokenizing public company stock by working with an issuer to say the same exact CUSIP that's trading on the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ can be tokenized and brought on chain. And it's fungible between those two systems. We've announced and we've tokenized Galaxy Digital shares, Forward Industry shares, and SharpLink Gaming shares. And we're starting to see, real proof of concepts of real companies. And that's the preface to this fundraise. We raised a very meaningful Series B. We're going to use it to build out our team and build out the product suites, both the types of assets that we're bringing onto blockchains to settle and trade, as well as the things that those tokens can do.
So just as a clarification, are you going to focus on the use of funds on product building, go to market, both?
Both. I mean, at the end of the day, we're building out our team, we're building more products, and we're going to be working with more and more issuers for tokenizing their new issuance. So
take me through this, because this is one of the nuances. I really want to unpack this, because I think this is something that's confusing to most normal people that aren't in the ropes. When you tokenize equity, like a stock, we all buy and sell stock, and people who have either an E-Trade account or an online day trading account, or if you're institutional, we know the concept of buying an equity. Stock went public, on NYSE, it's in the market, I call my broker, I do a trade on my own, whatever. I buy stock, I put it in my account. Okay, that's a stock. What is a tokenized stock? Is it a new stock or is it different? I mean, I know the answer, but I want you to explain, because I think people get confused.
Well, there's a couple different approaches out there that exist, which I think adds to the confusion. So the approach that Superstate takes is we work with an issuer such that the stock, that the exact same CUSIP, the exact same security that's registered with the SEC and trades on the New York Stock Exchange, that exact share of stock, instead of being recorded in a paper certificate or in book entry at the transfer agent or dematerialized and held in the DTC, we introduce a fourth means of recording ownership, which is a token. And so every token is a share of the company. It's just a different way of recording that share. And when somebody owns that token, they're actually the registered shareholder on the company's books and records of the company's shares. And so it's identical to owning the shares in any other way, has the same rights, the same governance, the same characteristics. The only difference is your shares recorded using a token in a wallet you control, instead of recorded and held at a transfer agent or through a broker-dealer.
Okay, so take me through kind of the sausage factory, as they say. Making the sausage could be messy, but let's unpack that.
Yeah.
So a company goes public like Bitco today, and they have a bid and a sell. So we watch the market makers do their thing. Do you guys buy the stock? Or do you get stock? Do you hold it and then you issue it? Is it like, and then pooled in the bigger number? I mean, I can see it being maybe an aggregate. I just don't know. Explain it to me.
Yeah, so the way that Superstate operates is we're an SEC registered transfer agent, and an issuer like Bitco hires Superstate as an official record of their shares. So, we might work alongside another transfer agent, we might be the exclusive transfer agent, but the Superstate shares are the official record of the company's ownership. And so a shareholder can take a share, that's currently in a brokerage account and instruct DTC to move it to the transfer agent, and then at Superstate to tokenize it. And so it enables a share to move between brokerage accounts and tokens on a blockchain and back and forth again. So we're not like a broker, we're not going out and buying shares and then issuing an IOU against them.
You're at the root level.
We're at the root level. And there's other forms of tokenization where someone goes out and buys shares and essentially issues like a share stable.
They're a quasi wannabe transfer agent, basically.
Correct.
You're in the fold, in the plumbing of the number of shares in the distribution of that stock for the purposes of tokenizing it.
Exactly. We keep score of how many shares exist and who owns them.
So you're a new mechanism.
That's right.
That really is what you guys are doing.
Exactly.
You're not replacing, but you sit side by side. So, okay, so let me just replay that back to you. See if I got it right. I buy, say, 1,000 shares of Bitco.
Yep.
Okay. I'm feeling good. Boom. Buy 1,000, or someone buys 1,000,000, whatever. I buy 1,000. I put it in my account. I say, I hold stock. I'm like, you know what? I really want to put it to the token. Maybe pledge against it, get some collateral, because there's benefits there. I then go to you and say, I'm opening up an account, and I transfer it over. I get a dashboard, and I see my tokens. I see my equity. Nothing's changed, except how it's recorded. Is that right?
That's exactly right. And when you own that 1,000 shares of Bitco, you're not actually on Bitco's shareholder registry. You're indirectly, you have like...
They can make a query for the other transfer agents.
They can query how many shares you own, but you're not actually on the company's books and records. And so, the way Superstate works is you would move your shares from your brokerage account back to the transfer agent level where you're the registered shareholder. It has your name in like the company's like cap table, so to speak. And then from there, you can say, move those shares to my Solana wallet or my Ethereum wallet so that I can pledge them as collateral, settle an OTC transaction, and eventually move them to another type of exchange.
Okay, so I love it. I want to get that out. I really want to explain that. It's a good explainer. All right, talk about velocity and scale. Okay, as you start bringing it into the market, obviously funding's going to help you build out your platform. I'm anticipating that we'll see uptake on this because once this jumps in, it's like the first penguin in the water, they all jump in, you're going to see a tsunami of people coming in, you're going to have volume. How do you address that? Is that something you guys look at? What's the answer to that?
Yeah, so I think, right now there's about 6,000 public companies, right? There's some that close every year and more companies that go public every year. I think eventually all 6,000 companies are going to have tokenized shares that the issuer is tokenizing. There's other models out there where a third party can go and make a token and, say they've tokenized every company, but the model we use is that the issuers really sign up and it's their shares and they can use them for raising capital. They could sell tokenized shares to raise more money as a follow-on offering. They can use the tokens as their own shares. Eventually, all 6,000 companies are going to have tokenized their shares in this way.
Okay,
but it's a journey.
So the difference between you and other approaches is, let's just say I wanted to get in the business of putting stuff on chain. I'm going to buy, I got an investor, I got say $100 million in capital, I buy a boatload of shares, I take them in, I get them, I cut maybe an account, and then I have to figure out how to tokenize them, and then do all that reporting, and do all the analytics, do all the...
Exactly. We have an issuer-led model where we partner with a public company, and they say, my shares are now tokenized.
What's the downside? What's the difference between the two?
The biggest difference between the two is scalability, frankly. So when a third party goes out and like mints their own stock tokens, there's no barriers to entry. They can get up and running in 2 seconds. Any startup can go out and buy a bunch of stocks in a brokerage account, right? It's incredibly scalable, but it's a different security. In our model, the downside, frankly, is the speed of winning issuers, tokenizing their own shares. And so that's the downside, is that it's higher quality. There's more that a company can do with those tokens, but we have to win issuers one by one.
Okay, so what's the benefit for being on chain? Okay, because I can see there's also being stock options. Brian Bauman at the NYSE and I've talked about this all the time. Yeah. I mean, why not put my options on there? If they're worth something and the company's going up or can get value, what's the value do I get out of that?
Yeah, so eventually I think companies will have most of their securities on chain. Their shares, their preferred, their convertibles, their debt. Eventually all these things are going to be on chain because it's just a file format that makes it backwards compatible so they can trade and settle in the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ and all of the traditional ways, but also forward looking such that they can be traded or settled in crypto exchanges or new platforms or things that haven't been built yet. And so the advantage is really the future proofing of new use cases that they want exposure to. It'll be a different investor base and different settlement rails.
So you guys have the opening bell platform, supports direct issuance programs on regulated systems that the SEC allows you to do that. Talk about the relationship between regulators.
Yeah, so we're focused on US issuers and the US regulatory structure. There are issuers in other jurisdictions, right? Every country has their own securities board of some variety. And there's people that are partnering with offshore companies, there's people that are building offshore platforms. We're focused solely in the US market for now.
What's the go-to-market strategy for you guys? What's the focus? What's your objectives?
Our objective is to work with each issuer of publicly traded securities to tokenize those securities so that they can be exposed to a larger global investor base.
On the Bitco IPO, what jumps out at you? Obviously they did well out of the gate. First crypto IPO in 2026. We had a great run in the second half of 2025, which is awesome. We see the regulatory environment looking really good. The fog's lifting. Yeah. A lot more builders are going to come out, more application developers, AI, crypto native, and AI native as well. What's your view of the IPO? What does it mean? What's the signal?
Yeah, so the signal that I see is Bitco's the first real pure play custody and infrastructure provider that's public, right? Coinbase has been public for a while. They have a custody business, right? Gemini went public, they have a custody line, right? But Bitco is really really just an infrastructure company, and they do that extremely well. And so I think some of the excitement that you're seeing today is because of the fact that it's a very simple to understand business that offers infrastructure to anyone who's building in the space, right? To store and custody assets. And today, they mostly store Bitcoin and a few other of the majors and the long tail of assets. But eventually, because they support crypto rails, it's my belief that they'll be able to offer custody for the future of securities in general. As stocks come on chain, as bonds come on chain, as new assets come on chain, Bitco is going to be able to work with them. And so I think the growth story for Bitco is actually really clear. Today, they are a custody provider for crypto native securities. In the future, they're a custody provider for all securities, and it's a huge market.
And they're an enabling platform. And what I like about Bitco is they're a platform.
Exactly.
And it reminds me of the cloud days. I remember when Amazon Web Services came out, it was very misunderstood, but I was using it from day one because I was an entrepreneur starting a company. It's like, okay, what do I do? I'm not going to get a data center and buy a box, I'll just use the cloud, put my credit card down. The categories in the early cloud days were labeled IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Infrastructure as a service, which was like compute, storage, networking, queuing. Platform as a sort of kind of middleware. And then SaaS, we all know what SaaS is, Airbnb, mobile applications. That was a huge wealth creating wave. It changed the game. We wouldn't see Box, Dropbox, Airbnb, Netflix without that. So I think we're seeing the same movie play out with BitGo. They're like an IaaS platform. So the question for you, well, you're not, you agree, of course. What are the higher level services that would come out? Because Amazon talks about higher level, because now they have thousands of products on top of their IaaS and PaaS layers. What is that headroom for BitGo? Because if you play it forward, it's not just store, it's store, deploy, build. And like what you're doing, you're building solutions.
Yeah, so I think there's really two axes that BitGo has as an opportunity to scale, right? The first one I touched on, which is the types of assets that they support as everything becomes tokens on blockchains, right? So right now it's crypto native assets, but I see a huge opportunity for them to store tokenized securities, right? Which have a much larger market cap and addressable market.
Trillions.
Much larger than crypto is today, right? So they have a massive growth story in the types of tokenized assets that they custody. Easy growth story. And the second is the services that interact with custody, right? So they've already done, they've built a settlement network within BitGo. I think there's going to be more trading, more settlement, and more things built on top of that basic building block of custody that emerge over time.
Robert, I think you're on to that, certainly on point. I'll share a story and I want to get your reaction. I was talking to an entrepreneur and he was developing a solution with a agriculture partner that had millions of acres of trees that produced fruit. And I'm like, well, I don't get it. He goes, no, it's real world asset. I go, why? He goes, each tree produces $3,000 a year in fruit, times a million, do the math. I go, okay, cool.
A lot of fruit.
So what does that mean? He goes, well, we'll tokenize it and it'll either produce or not. Now that's a futures prediction market. So I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, but if there's no there's no middleman. It's like, if the weather's bad, the market will figure it out. Now you got yield, so now you're kind of in a futures. That's a financial product applied to an asset that's real world, that has been on paper. Someone does a forecast, they check the trees. It's like, now it's complete transparency.
And you could take that financial product and it could have nothing to do with crypto, right? Where you could say, hey, we've taken these trees and we've packaged them into a security, right? You could also put it on a blockchain, and what that does is it makes it easier to transfer ownership, trade ownership, and settle the ownership.
Buy and sell trees.
Yeah.
It's again, this is why I think real world assets is kind of an opaque topic for mainstream. But if you think about it, everything we own, home, art, we all know what the assets are. No one thought about forestry or like trees, but like that's an extreme example, but it illustrates the point.
Right, it makes it where there's something extremely esoteric and complicated to transfer and settle, and standardizes it, makes that settlement extremely simple and in a format that works with all of the other crypto infrastructure.
All right, thanks so much for coming in. Last question, what are you most excited about right now with the market? Are you happy with the regulatory environment? Are you happy with the way things are going, the mainstream of crypto?
Yeah, I think there's great tailwinds for Congress to pass market structure legislation. I think there's a great regulatory environment right now where regulators want innovation, and they've been talking about coming out with new rules to enable innovation using blockchain. And I think that the companies that are operating in this space are working really fast to bring new products to market, and I just think the future is in our hands.
Well, congratulations, Superstate raised $82.5 million. You're a tech company and a financial company, all rolled into one. Congratulations, thanks for coming on, being a Trailblazer, OG, and Trailblazer of theCUBE here. Our crypto trailers are the leaders we're featuring who are making it happen, ushering in the new era of financial money, infrastructure, platforms, applications. New creative things will emerge. It's just right in pace with the AI world. You're starting to see massive rise, a whole new generation. You know, crypto infrastructure and AI infrastructure are soon going to come together. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. Thanks for watching.